quick explanation of how we operate our meetings on Wednesdays. Wednesday is kind of a Zen day where we have been studying for more than a year and a half, this book. And this book is called Standing at the Edge by Roshi Joan Halifax, who is the abbess and Zen master at Upaya Institute in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Today, we're going to continue a conversation all about compassion. And for our practice today, I would like to invite everybody to assume a posture of rest, to take a posture in the body, in the mind, that feels ease, that is open to receiving. And one of the ways we can do that, we can come into the mindfulness of the body, which is one of the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Really tapping into the body, turning our gaze inward toward the body, is we gently either close our eyes or turn the gaze downward. Feel free to lie down, feel free to sit on a chair or on your cushion. And you know, part of getting in touch with the body is also recognizing that stillness is not always available to us. So one of the wonderful things about joining a meeting online is your body can be in movement. And I want you to rest assured and receive with confidence that even though you are in movement, that is a beautiful way to practice. Invite that to be perfect. Invite that to be your practice today. Driving meditation, walking meditation, hiking meditation, bike riding meditation, lunch hour at work meditation. It all matters and it all counts. Welcome everyone. This is Recovery Dharma. My name is Julia. I'm one of the facilitators at the Spokane Sangha. I'd like to begin our practice today with a sentiment of metta. And this is a little card. We made mantras on Sunday with a little workshop, and this particular mantra card was made by our wonderful technology genius, Lo. And then she wrote a wonderful mantra on the back. She writes, recognize your beauty in all the beauty around you. Aw, I love that. Recognize your beauty in all the beauty around you. Stay with the body. Stay with the breath. Stay with the beauty of your surroundings, the beauty of your body, the beauty surrounding the fact that you can breathe and you are alive, and this is a precious human life. We have been contemplating compassion, karuna, for many weeks now. Compassion is one of the limitless qualities that we are invited to cultivate in a Buddhist practice. The other 3 are loving kindness, joy, and equanimity. A very common theme that has arisen and revealed itself in our conversations and sharings is the dissonance between how easy it is to offer compassion to other people, our loved ones, our children, our parents, our siblings, our lovers, our partners, our co-workers, even strangers. It is, however, much more challenging to offer that same compassion toward ourselves. For the month of August, the theme of all of our conversations that we've woven in as a beautiful thread through every meditation and every Dharma teaching has been the cultivation of patience. And so even if we are harboring a story that says, I'm compassionate to other people, but not to myself, that actually can be true. And it is likely not the whole truth. So to cultivate more self-compassion and to ease ourselves away from our attachment to that story requires patience. And patience is an extraordinary act of compassion. Today, for the reading in Standing at the Edge, I'd like to introduce to you something that Roshi calls the 3 faces of compassion, and we're going to explore one of them. Again, I simply want you to receive her wisdom, to listen to her story, to relax, to breathe, to tap into any efforting that you are making at this moment to try to be a good meditator, to try to look all yoga-y or whatever hang-up you have about meditation, and simply arrive as you are. Breathe with simplicity and beauty and enjoy this practice. These are the words of Roshi Joan Halifax. For many years, I wondered if compassion could be seen from perspectives other than what most of us are familiar with, the kind of compassion that is focused on another's suffering, particularly those in our in-group. I had a breakthrough in my quest to understand this when I read the 14th century Zen master Muso Soseki's Dialogues in a Dream. Soseki discusses the kind of compassion that is most familiar to us, where we direct our compassion toward others. Social psychologists call this referential compassion. But he also notes 2 other faces of compassion. Compassion that is based on insight, and compassion that has no object, but is non-referential and universal. Non-referential and universal compassion is what I would like to share with you all today. This is a story about an experience that Roshi had that explains what universal compassion is, how it can manifest in a single moment in a couple of lives that can change a person forever. She writes, Soseki also suggests this 3rd form of compassion is unbiased. It's compassion without an object. It is true compassion. I experienced this form myself once. I was teaching in Toronto and staying in a private home. Getting out of the shower, I slipped on the wet floor and fell, shattering my thigh bone and trochanter, which is like the thigh bone hip joint. I knew a really bad thing had happened when I looked at the angle of my leg. A few heartbeats later, I was seized in the grip of excruciating pain. Being a good Southerner, I politely called out, "Help! Can someone help me?" My voice was thin as a reed, and I could barely breathe. Within minutes, my host, Andrew, arrived, gently braced my back where I was sitting on the floor, and shouted to his wife to call an ambulance. I could not move and could barely speak, but Andrew knew what to do. Like a tree, he supported my spine and remained perfectly still so I could let go into the spaces between the wrenching pulses of pain. When the first responders arrived, a young medic came into the bathroom and announced that they were going to move me onto a gurney. My mind and body balked at his words. I was already on the edge of blacking out, and I could feel my blood pressure dropping from the intensity of the pain. I looked at the young medic straight in the eyes and said, "Before you move me, I need something to control the pain." The medic told me in a flat voice that he was not licensed to administer morphine. "Get someone who is," I said. I wasn't kidding. He dialed his phone to bring in a licensed provider. 10 long minutes later, an older medic arrived. He kneeled beside me and took my blood pressure, which was ocean bottom low. He nodded and with a syringe pulled clear liquid from a small bottle. He stretched out my arm, but my veins had collapsed from shock, and the needle poke yielded nothing. He tried the other arm, then each of my wrists. Then I don't remember where. I only recall noticing the sweat drip down his face as he tried to help me, his mouth drawn and the skin taut around his eyes. The young medic was standing beside the bathroom wall, looking pale, his eyes rolled up as though he was going to faint. He seemed distressed, watching me get stuck with the needle 6 times. My heart opened to him, and at that moment, my veins opened too, flushing my body with blood. The needle slipped in, and I felt enough relief that I could be moved. As the first responders carried the gurney down the long staircase, my body pitched at a dangerously steep angle, slid inches down, and froze up again. Finally, I was in the ambulance, and we were racing through Toronto streets toward the hospital, sirens screaming. It was Friday the 13th, and a full moon in June. The older medic leaned close to me, and I sensed that something was weighing him down. Without thinking, I touched his knee and asked if he was all right. It was a strange question for me to be asking under the circumstances, but it arose out of me, out of nowhere. The kind of nowhere that is there during deep meditation, the nowhere that is present when pain has eclipsed the self. His eyes wet, he said in barely an audible voice, "My wife is dying of breast cancer." In that moment, nothing existed but this suffering human beside me and the inexplicable warmth I felt in my body, in my heart, in the atmosphere between us. In that moment, my pain vanished completely. I looked into his eyes, and they were wet and unguarded. Writing this, I recall the words of songwriter Lucinda Williams, quote, "Have compassion for everyone you meet, for you do not know what wars are going on down there, where the spirit meets the bone." In the ambulance, I had no idea, and that is the point. In the ER, I was put on a morphine drip, cathed, given a cool cloth for my head, and left in an outer hall. My new friend sat silently beside the gurney for some hours until I got rolled away to X-ray. I saw him once more after my surgery. I don't know his name, never asked for it, didn't think to ask, but there we were. He'd come alongside my boat, and I had come alongside his. In retrospect, I realized that in the midst of my own critical state, I had opened into an experience of universal compassion. The experience was not about him, nor about me. The upwelling of boundless concern and love for another had dissolved my sense of self, and with that, my pain had melted away. The compassion of the undifferentiated body of no cause comes burning forth. Over the years, when I've shared the story of the fall I took in that Toronto bathroom, dozens of people have responded with similar stories in which their own suffering ended spontaneously when they felt unbidden compassion for another. What kind of compassion was this? It wasn't premeditated or even intentional. It arose from my bones, broken though they were, and it gave me relief, surprising relief. I believe it touched the medic as well. During a recent visit with my old friend Ram Das, we were talking about compassion. He reminded me of these words from the Ramayana, the Indian epic. Ram, who is God, asks Hanuman, the monkey god, who embodies selfless service, "Who are you, monkey?" Hanuman replies, "When I don't know who I am, I serve you. When I know who I am you." My old friend and I smiled to each other. Is this not the deepest expression of compassion? Friends, one of the reasons why we experience compassion fatigue is because the focus of our compassion is concentrated on some kind of action that we feel we need to do, compelled to do, to fix something, to alleviate another person's pain, to help. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's beauty in that, and that's what we need to do. It is a compassionate act to want to help someone, to want to alleviate their pain and suffering. However, universal compassion reminds us and really humbles us, perhaps even wises us up to the reality that there is only so much any one of us can do, given the conditions. And so the compassionate act is to not despair over the limits that we can offer, but to stay present to the reality. These medics couldn't fix Roshi's leg in that moment. They could sort of alleviate her pain in that moment. They could help her in that moment, yes, but they couldn't take the moment away, take back the injury, nor the rehab that she was certain to face. But they stayed present to her. Cultivating space to stay present to someone, especially when we're uncomfortable, especially when we're frustrated because we can't make the pain stop. We can't make the suffering go away. We can't take away the hurt. Staying present to that requires so much patience. It is a practice. And it is a practice of true compassion, so desperately needed in this world. Alrighty, friends, let's go ahead and end our practice with the dedication of merit. For anybody new to the practice, anytime we bring forward the Buddha, who is the symbolic person that reminds us of our potentiality and capacity to awaken to the conditions of suffering. Whenever we come into the presence of the Dharma, the teachings of the Buddha, whenever we come into the presence of Sangha, the community of wise friends who are practicing together, a lot of positive energy is created. A lot of positive merit is created. We dedicate all of this positivity out into the world. We keep, of course, everything that we've gained here today for ourselves, but by extension, we extend it out into the world. May it reach others with a warm presence. May your practice here today find a smile on someone else's face. May our practice here today contemplating compassion, nonreferential compassion. May you experience it as an arising from your bones. May you all have the courage to tap into universal compassion for yourself. May you continue to practice with joy and beauty. Thank you so much for your practice, friends. We'll see you next time. Namaste.